Sweet, and we're live. Welcome back to the labs. Yeah, today I'm going to just be going through this change token and building the back side of it. Right now it's, kind of nifty on the front. We kind of went with this logo. The back, we decided to do something a little different. We're going to be taking our Coos County flag from when we were doing that project and kind of making a coin token version of it on the back. So I'm going to go through, swap out this image plane, and get started. Um, the other way to select that would be to select the camera, go to its attributes, but that was quick enough. So yeah, I might not be too talkative in this one unless some questions come up in either channel, but kind of want to go through some of the Maya modeling techniques we went over when we did the first side of this coin, and then just kind of show some other techniques and ways to use primitives and stuff like that. So yeah, I'll shut up and just get started. I say that, and then the first thing I'm going to do is probably something I should show people. So we're going to go into this top view here, and you can see that there's one set of faces, the other set of faces. For right now, we're just going to select that part, and in this view, we're going to isolate that selection. Oop. One more thing we need to select. Camera is considered an object, so let's isolate that selection together. Now we can just see the back of the token. And this part I'm just going to experiment a little bit. Oops. Well, that doesn't do much useful. And that's why 3D modeling is about experimentation. That method's not going to work, but we can definitely find one that will. Why does that look all weird now? I'll just recreate that quickly. That is totally what happened. Okay, so selecting these totally makes sense, puts that off center. I'm going to solve this by literally just moving that to the vertex right there and then scaling from that. That should be a lot better. Same thing is that totally messes up. Can I see it on this side? One of these sides, I just have to select that. Snap those vertices back into place. Okay, now that that's cleaned up, let's just put these in place for now, figure out the other parts. Now we gotta play around with a different type of Boolean. This one, we want to see where they intersect. So, intersection. I love it when things in Maya are actually named things that make sense. It's not always the case, but does tend to help with, UX, UI stuff. Originally, I was thinking of having this star, cut off at the edge of the circle. I'm almost liking how intersection looks, except for I don't like the sharp edge on the coin. I know I'm going to flatten most of these down pretty close to the shape of the coin, but at this point you can kind of see hopefully where I'm going with this. I'm going to try doing another raised strip for the yellow part of this, and then be able to boolean out the stars to go all the way back to, the maximum depth of that side of the coin. So, yeah, get to that one. It's always so much easier to do random banter with questions. Though, it's one of those things you kind of get used to with, like, public speaking, if you, do it long enough, where in some venues, like, especially when you're starting out, like, there's a lot of, like, trying to think of the best way to say, intimate venues. Ones where you can see the audience, you can see all of their individual reactions, and it allows you to kind of perform better than you would expect because you can gauge your ability based off their reaction. You can see, oh, they're not understanding that, add a little more detail, or, however else it works. Kind of depends what type of public speaking you're doing. Though the part that's kind of weird about it is you get better at it, that just gets taken away from you. You start going to a larger venue, and when people are thinking of, that's kind of nifty. Just one of them though. You get to a larger venue, you don't get any of that. And it's not so much that the audience doesn't want you to know how it sounds, how it feels, or makes them feel, whatever else. It's just that they can't. Like, they can be screaming your name and you can't hear anything. Like, you're just too far away, too big of a space. Everything is acoustically designed so they can hear you really well, but you can't really hear them. And the first time you get to that, it's such a weird feeling because it's like quite literally deafening in some senses. It's a deafening silence where you're trying to speak and you realize how much of your speaking really relies on the conversation, even though it's a nonverbal conversation, but the conversation you're having with your audience. And I've always kind of saw like online streaming is kind of like that because a lot of people have seen things after the fact. Like some of the series have actually gotten way more views on various platforms that I expected to start tracing it down. It's not something like, oh, I did this part better, did this thing. It's like, oh, this one person noticed it and something triggered. And it's one of those I've been learning, I kind of came back from a bit of a hiatus, but it's a good thing to have that, more constant communication because that is that level of feedback you get for this type of media. And it's something that I've always wondered if it's the same thing for actors. Like, take, big name actor, I don't care which one at this point, And most of them came from theater or some other form of acting. I guess, The Rock is kind of, or Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I'm not sure how he, goes by that anymore. But you kind of see some other theatrical thing that he came from. But I wouldn't be surprised if theater was in his background before all of that as well. I'd actually be very surprised if there wasn't some other, form of entertainment in there. And that's the same type of switch in my thought or opinion, because even though, the audience is supposed to be quiet, stuff like that, I mean, you hear those gasps, you hear those chuckles, you hear the things, it's like, yes, I'm on the right track. And you don't really get that in some more modern forms of media, but not even that, though, like as I was saying, like Hollywood movies, it's kind of the same thing. Like you're filming it way before, anybody will have a chance to see it react. Everybody on the set could think, "Oh man, this is the perfect thing." And it could totally miss with audiences. And I get that that's why they do, big reviews and all these things to try, finding a way to balance that. But it is kind of one of those interesting things. I saw an article very recently that was talking about media in China and how there's a lot of misinformation or the information isn't quite accurate or, a bunch of different versions of it. But one of the things I thought was interesting is like the ones that actually had like information and like pictures, things like that. One of the things that was kind of weird were, yeah, a lot of the theaters, these are sold out shows, and they weren't sold out. And then it comes to your definition of like, oh, well, what is a sold out show? Like, were all the tickets sold? Did everyone show up? Did we fill all the seats? And it was one of those kind of weird, you know, they were trying to be very critical of the Chinese entertainment industry. But I think one of the things is they're still trying to figure out, what it is. It's not that they lack creativity or anything. It's that creativity isn't always all that matters. I can make many great examples, but I've seen this in some of my own projects, ones that worked with, amazing teams, had what felt like all the resources you could ever need for it, and they weren't able to, I wouldn't say pull it off. They were able to pull it off. Actually, in both cases, both actually made fully functioning video games that were hitting test markets. People were playing them. People were liking them. And it just came back to, oh, it's not a high enough return on investment for these players to get access to it and buying enough players so there's money coming in. How much is it going to cost? It kind of came to this royal spreadsheet, for lack of a better word. And that spreadsheet kind of chose if a game would see a light of day or not. And in my opinion, I would rather see a bunch of games. Like, the incentive is to make things, to be creative, to put things out for the public. I think that there could be a better set of incentives, and not trying to blame any specific company or anything like that. I think it's a systemic thing. If you're trying to compare it to, I would say business or anything else, it's like, that is, whoop, did Maya just disappear? Where'd Maya go? Come back. There it is. But, I'm totally losing track of where I am. That's the other fun thing, too. Nobody in Discord. So usually somebody in Discord, reminds me when I'm forgetting, what I'm talking about. I'm actually really good at just rambling. Though, I usually try to keep it as informative rambling as possible. That's another thing that's great too, is like, as I mentioned, the whole public speaking thing. As I'll just segue back to a topic I'm remembering. That it depends what type of public speaking you're doing, mind you. There's some that would be really hard to do this. But some things have prompts. So you're never really forgetting what you're talking about, because it's like, oh, what is the topic of this debate? what is the topic of this segment of this debate? What is the giant thing on the teleprompter in front of me saying? Like, there's not really a way for you to kind of forget, and even if you do, like mid-sentence somebody says something, somebody does something distracting, which usually can draw even the best, professionals out of their train of thought. Like, there's something that kind of prompts and guides that. Teaching a class, I feel, is very similar in that regard. Like, there's always something that's prompting, something like that. But really, when I'm doing these streams, the idea is that I'm trying to make something that is very, clear. It's not like oh, this is the condensed version. I actually want to show the process on a lot of the streams. And then for the, final videos, the compiled videos, those are the ones I want to be kind of the, quick introduction. Here's the information you need so you could move on, make an additive modular library of that content. What am I doing here? Combine those. And so that's another thing that's kind of good about this format is as we're testing lights, green screen, all that stuff, and getting things more prepared for, being able to do, I'm trying to think of a better word to say it, but, bigger streams or more produced streams. That's where it's really going to, help having a lot of this content where we can say, hey, we already have a lot of footage. Let's experiment with editing this. We have things where we've tested this. Let's try it on, this day's stream or whatever else. So it's actually been really cool and, kind of insightful for me to see, what that balance is. Like, where does that have the most benefit? And let's see. I know, I'm getting distracted by my own modeling here. So now that we kind of have this as 3 different layers, now I'm trying to figure out which one do I want at what height. And I think one of the things that might be nifty is having, the sandbars be fairly, well, I shouldn't say sandbars, the dunes and Highway 101 being a fairly standard height, like make that flat, and then making the green terrain have just very subtle slope. I mean, it's a coin, so it's not something most people are even going to notice, but I think that might be a good way to kind of have that terminate. Sure, I'll go for it. And this little overlap, that's actually going to be, while not important to the design, kind of important to my thoughts on the design. That's the inlet to the sea. So let's see on here. No, that was not an intended pun. Say we're actually pretty close to having all the base shapes on this, though. Have those two. What am I doing? Booleans on this one, intersection. So I think it's about as high up on the coin as I can get that comfortably. So I think that's going to be our road height. And on here, I want to see what I can do. I think this will be a good time to show what a lattice is. Dynamics. I know they're totally in here. Is that in dynamics or is that in animation? Oh, okay. I should say animations. Create deformer, lattice. Right now it gives me a lattice that isn't really useful for what I'm doing, so I'm just going to turn that back to 2. Grab 2 of these lattice points. And this is kind of like a deformer that is basically a cube. Like if I wanted to raise this part out really far, I could. You can kind of see what it's doing. It's kind of keeping everything in a line. It's actually a really good solver for that. But in this case, I actually want to go the other way. See if I can get a nice overlap. Kind of more that direction. So you can kind of see there's more of the coin visible on that side than this side. But I want to make sure it's enough that that star is still going to be clearly visible. So let's see. Yeah, I think that would be good. Same thing, delete new type history. That just gets rid of deformers or anything like that. Let's see. Now I should be able to start booleaning some of these shapes. And I actually don't think that's a word, I just make things up. So now you can see we got that star in there. Let's do the same thing here. And this is the one that I think is going to break stuff, so I might manually have to do that one. And I'll do the same thing here. Boolean out that one. But I'm going to be doing something a little different with this one. So as you can see, there's a star sticking out on that side. I'm going to try to keep that. So that's going in, and that's being squished down. I just want that to have a very subtle edge, because stars are pointy, and I don't want it to be actually sharp. I think it's a subtle enough profile, and on this side, you can kind of see it works out fairly well. Now we figure out what we're doing with the big star. Ideally, I would try to have it be cut out in kind of similar in profile to the other ones. It might be hard to do that, so I might actually experiment and see what it looks like both ways. Have it be either cut out or kind of coming out of the face of the coin. There should be enough of a lip where I could make a visual profile doing that, which might be the safest option for the design. But as I said, I'm going to play around with a couple versions. Right now, I'm really liking how that kind of feels. This part does feel like it's going to be the dirty side of the coin. I just totally have that feeling. It just has the deepest groove and stuff, so if it's handled, I know it's thinking of design stuff versus art stuff some of the times, though. I guess that's one of the keys to being able to extend to do product design versus just fine art. Another one that's actually a really good discipline to jump into and get experience in, industrial design. If somebody needs you to make a very specific piece to a very specific standard, I had a couple of contracts that I'm pretty sure they were subcontracts from government or whatever, but it got no information whatsoever on what the object was. It was just like, we need something that makes this, tests this, fits this piece. That's it. okay, cool, totally made a 3D model, got it all patterned and stuff. It's like, okay, thank you. Like, oh, okay. And, you know, kind of had a couple jobs that were like that, and they were really good jobs, but it was just one of those kind of an odd one of, okay, it fits this specification, you get nothing else. And yeah, I know other industrial design jobs can be a lot more informed. Like one of the other ones I've seen, somebody I know was making vacuums and working for a bigger company, and it was one of those, he really liked it because he was designing wind variants, all these things to be like, oh yeah, this is the best way to design this. But it was totally something where he could see and be part of the whole thing. And I guess that's one of the other big things for not just industrial design, I guess any industry. Like that wasn't so much a difference of like, this is government, this is private sector. It's more of a difference of how big the company you're working for. Not so much the industry, but if you're working for a very small company, more people are going to have to know more pieces of it to get it done. If it's something that's really big company, say, government size, it's not really the same constraints. You start running into, I actually kind of like how that kind of protects that corner a bit. Um, you start running into things where there's so many people who have to approve something that you're kind of going up the ladder, kind of building up, a case or an argument for changing something versus a very small team where it's like, oh, you're the engineer and you want to change how that's engineered? That's on you. And to me, that's kind of an important thing to look at when somebody's jumping into an industry or jumping into a job, that what type of team they work on is important, but what size of team, what type of place do they want to work at? If you're working for a place that has big teams, maybe that's an important question to ask them, is what is the size of my direct team or my unit? I don't know, I've heard it called so many different things in different studios. So instead of going through all of them, what would be beneficial for people to ask is, yeah, what type of team, what type of culture. I don't want to say culture because right now there's a lot of, I wouldn't say bad things because yeah, there are some that are really bad, some that I haven't seen as bad things from, but culture can be a bad thing. I mean, there can be a toxic culture to a studio, but being able to find a studio that you fit in culture, like if you like making fun fluffy clouds, maybe making the next like deathmatch game isn't going to be the best fit. I may come up with many different examples. Sometimes you still have to take the jobs when they come, but in the ideal, like what type of project would you want to work on? What size of team would you like to work on? I'm trying to think what other ones would be like really good questions to ask in an interview. Because another good thing about that is when the person being interviewed asks questions, it catches people's attention. Like, that's definitely a good thing. You want them to be able to remember you, remember your interview and things. And asking real questions also shows that you're informed. Like, if you're asking dumb questions, then it's not going to help you anyway. But if you're asking a really informed question about the company or their culture or what type of process they have when making decisions, it kind of shows, A, you're either really concerned about those things, or B, you've done your research. You've seen those things. You've read about them. I've actually had ones where I did research and stuff where it really was I was talking to a bunch of friends and stuff trying to get, I wouldn't say, information about various studios, but just starting to ask them, like, hey, what are the projects coming up? What types of things are you needing? And then being able to say, like, hey, yeah, guess what I've been researching the past few months? A, B, C, X, Y, Z. And that's always good for, research and development. It's kind of in my title. Kind of important to me. But the other big thing about that is staying current on technologies and topics. That's an important one when coming to, a studio, is If it's one of those, hey, everybody's changing to this new technology, but this studio hasn't yet, maybe that's a question. Do they have another option? Are they trying to build their own in-house? Is that what they are hiring for? And being able to, ask those types of questions isn't always just speculation, but sometimes it can be a very clear indication you understand their business need or their market need. And for HR and other hiring people, that might be more important. For the people on the ground working on the project, they still want to make sure you know what you're doing, connect, build stuff, do things. One of those. Being able to balance the two is definitely the ideal. So I'm looking at this. I actually kind of like that one with a bit of the sharp edge, but this one, I do like those slightly rounded edges. So I'm going to play around with this a little bit. I've just had really bad luck trying to bevel some of these extruded shapes before. So, A, good to save. B, clear out all these histories that could mess things up. I don't know if this would be a good thing or a bad thing on this, but I'm going to try it. Maybe I'll leave those ones unselected for now. Okay, it totally killed one of these two shapes. Woo! So let's try this selected the same way between these two, and if that works, then we got it. As I said, experimentation is kind of key when it comes to 3D modeling. I know it's a technical tool, I should be able to say like, oh no, do it exactly this way, this happens. It doesn't always work that way. I've always thought of Maya as a really good engine. Sometimes it needs a new steering wheel or seat to be functional, or depending on the tool. Whoop, something breaks right there. Let's see if I can drop that offset. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it that way. Because right now, this face right here, I'll kind of explain what's going on. So yeah, those are different shapes, A. B, this face here is totally an irregular ingon, has shapes cut out on the inside. Mathematically, it has no clue what to do on this face. We can do a couple things, but I think this might actually mess up what we're trying to do. I'm going to try it anyway, and that is to triangulate this face, which exists there. But you can see sometimes triangulation does some weird things. So now let's come back in here and see if we can select this. Well, at least it kind of split that. We'll see what we can do here. Double. Woo. yeah, as I said, it's going to do some weird things. I'm not sure if it's going to be friendly with this. You can see it's doing something. Uh, yeah, don't know if that's going to work quite for our case. But it was worth experimenting on that. As I said, I don't need to round out these shapes. I do like the shape of them being rounded out on that side, but the easier way I could round them off actually would be wait till I get to ZBrush and then do a very subtle smooth on things, but I'm trying to do this one entirely in Maya, and I'll honestly actually think that trying to get this face, kind of that ribbed texture, I kind of like that natural smoothing shape. Uh, kind of copy that up and try making that this green part here. So I think I'm going to do a little more experimentation because then that will give me some texture there. I will have to definitely take a couple more of the stars, punch them through. But I think I could get a really cool shape and texture here that will add some contrast to it. Easiest way to do this. Is there an edge loop in here to let me grab? And then just grow this edge loop as much as you need. Because then that'll let me select pretty close to the end there. Can I do one more? And that gives me a pretty good shape. I'm just going to copy that for now. Or copy, derp, duplicate. Duplicate those faces. It creates a new shell of geometry that we can take. I'm just going to rotate this around 180 degrees so the normals on the faces are facing the right way, and now let's kind of push that up that way. Is that really the size difference? Okay, I'm going to play around with that a little bit. I do kind of like that shape being in the blue as well. I think it totally makes more sense in the green, but I'm going to save it at this point and then go back as a save as. That way I can have both variants there, play around with them a bit. How does that look on the other side? Okay, that needs to be thinned out. Mm. Apparently I am really good at hitting a hotkey that just like takes me out of my... I am trying to hit Alt, whatever it looks like I'm trying to do. Well, trying to hit Alt so I can put 2 more stars in this thing. But then I'm kind of liking where that's going. I do see that I missed a bit of the overlap there, and I'm curious if I can still grab that shape and do a quick edit. The other option I have, because that's a background layer, just fix it manually. As I said, a lot of stuff in 3D art, it could be very, very, very precise. It's still art. People are going to be moving things, creating things. Some of my favorite examples, artists that I've worked with at various companies, so I won't give away any of their secrets of how they're building. But one of the things that was really cool to reuse, shapes, build space and stuff. They were using these modular pieces, and if you saw how the level looked, if you just like zoomed out, turn off the no clipping mode or whatever, you start seeing, or turn on no clipping mode, you start seeing these weird interlocking shapes where they're utilizing as much space as possible. But if you were actually imagining that as like, oh, that's this object there, this thing here, there's no way that that space is actually there because you're kind of walk back over through what would be the backside of that truck or that castle or whatever it is. And it's something that I've kind of seen more and more as I've noticed in video games and things like theme parks and stuff. It's awesome to see like the Disney castles from different angles because they're designed so you're walking up to them, they look like these giant cathedrals. But it's all forced perspective because they know you have to walk past a certain point to walk up to it. So everything kind of angles in this way that it looks like it goes really big far off in the distance, and it really isn't. So it's kind of cool to see some of those optical illusions kind of play out in real life. Let's see. I will put these 2 other stars back in there. I think we might be good on that. Yeah, even though I know it would have to be approved, I would love to do kind of like an entire class on storytelling through a Disney theme park. It was something that one of my teachers, didn't, do officially, so to speak, but kind of explained how a lot of the stories and things kind of played out visually. And it's one of those things that it's kind of hard until you're there to really understand what he's talking about, but really boils down to like clues kind of put in the path because you know where the person is coming from. And it only works if you know where their, origin is, all that stuff. And that's one of the other things I found really cool about it is, there is kind of limits to it, understanding those limits, how everything is worked. To me, that's like the coolest part about all of it. Though I can kind of geek out about that. But, knowing that it's like, oh, you're walking through this entrance, you're going to be walking around this angle, you're going to see things in this order. The coolest part is when there are things that break that, though. So it's like, oh, if you walk from the other direction, you see these clues and you think this happened. And it's something that I've always wanted to integrate more and more into my writing and all sorts of things, really, is kind of playing that up. How much... Did that actually work? I don't think that actually worked. Are those going to be subtly raised? They might be. Oh well. Still looks kind of nifty because the bar ones are imprinted. But yeah, it's kind of a cool thing to play up in stories of how you see the exact same events unfolding from different perspectives can give you a completely different feeling about the situation. And sometimes they do that with, two people on the same team with opposing viewpoints, kind of explaining it quickly, and you're like, oh yeah, that guy's kind of dark and evil. But other times, it's really subtle. It can be hard to tell, who is being logical. If you're saying that, there's one true answer, maybe it's not as clear as as you would want to think or that you would assume. And those have actually always been my favorite stories, where you have to pause, stop, think, like, wait, who was the bad guy? Because, I mean, there are definitely stories and stuff where, you go through, you feel like you're following, the good guy the entire time until you just see something that isn't right. It kind of makes you question how you were seeing the perspective before. Other times it's intentional. Other times that character has changed in a story. And what types of things would drive them to change is important to the plot. So it can be really interesting seeing, how that change works, how it plays out. Oh, that's right. I cut that through and there's still another object behind it. So I'd have to cut through both to get that star. I actually might try that one more time. But yeah, so for me, it's kind of interesting to kind of play that up. But my favorite stories, and this is one that it's hard to find like a really good story that can do this. I've always tried doing it in my own. Um, Having the different perspectives where there might not be a bad guy. Everyone is doing that, what from their perspective is the most noble thing, the most honorable thing, the most correct thing, the most, however their culture defines it, thing. And it becomes a really interesting way to kind of break that paradigm of this person is right, this person is wrong, when you start being able to see from these perspectives and understand what their perspective is. And that's where it's like, don't want to give away things on, different stories or things. But Game of Thrones is one that's always been really interesting, to me in that opinion, or in that regard, is they always show things from different perspectives, like every chapter can be a different perspective. So it's really kind of interesting. You're always getting that shift, you're always getting that change, you're always understanding why they, have that opinion. But there's also characters that are intentionally designed to not be likable. So while you can understand why they are doing something, it still gives you pause of how did they get to that point. And to me, that's a very interesting take on that. Is, it is situational sometimes, but other times it's just as situational for them to snap out of that. And there's a lot of good cases in there. As I said, not going to ruin the show for anybody, but yeah, it's definitely something to kind of look out for and see. And I think it's going to be important in the show as well. But as I said, not going to give away anything on that. Not really that I have much to give away. I mean, I think everyone has seen up to current stuff because there's been more than enough time, as I don't even know when the next season's coming out. I think somebody said that they actually had a date or something, and I was joking. I was like, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. So, yeah. We'll see. Not that I don't think it'll come out. I'm pretty sure it'll come out, but I think the problem with it is they're going to kind of miss that big window. But it was because it was kind of taking off and getting big that, actors started doing other things. There started being a bit more of a break. Timing started being harder. They had to, pay more for the actors. You can kind of see how it, definitely snowballed a bit. So one thing I'm going to do now that I'm getting a little closer to this, let's see, that edge is intentional, that's there, it's getting a little harder for me to see the shapes on here. So one of the things I'm going to do is select all of this and just give it a different shader. Subtle difference. I'm going to give it a blend though. Blend will let me see the highlights a little more and will make that a little easier. I guess I can do this on this screen so you can see it. So now should be a bit more blendy. Now you can kind of see some of those shapes a little more. And where they overlap, how they overlap. I really like how that texture adds just a little bit to that. What I kind of want to see is if the inverse kind of works. Wait, what is that face? It says that is part of that same coin. What did I do here? That's the part I'm wanting. Whoa. What did I do here? Did I merge this all the way around somehow? It appears like I did. Oops. Or not? Hmm. Okay, let's take a look at that again. Oh, that's probably what I'm doing. I'm hitting a Streamlabs hotkey. That's what messes up things. Good to know. I need to turn off whatever that hotkey is. Because that is a very important one in Maya. I'm sure many Maya people can relate to that. That it's like all the keys are important. It's like, well, what key can we overwrite for this thing? None of them. Oh, what? I totally did texturize that. How did I do that? If I do that, now that's smooth again. Or is it? I can't tell if that's smooth. Okay. I don't think that actually has texture there. My mind is having issues with this, because part of this is totally poking through. Let's just take all of this. If we can. Just push it back the tiniest bit. That'll give a little bit of a way to catch light on that edge. And we'll be looking at that. I want to see if there's a way we can smooth out some of these edges. Oh, that's something I need to fix. Big star should not be poking through. But I think that's actually looking pretty good. We have the ray burst in there for agriculture. I do kind of want to get some texture in here for the water. I don't know, that might be a version 2 thing, but I'm kind of liking this overall shape here. Next step is to, yeah, merge this, make sure all of the pieces are watertight, and then be able to clean it up for 3D printing. I should be able to, let's go to the attribute editor, see if we can remove the image plane. So another thing you can do to remove things, because I'm trying to get rid of this image plane, is find it. Oh, not showing up in there. Outliner. Oh, what? Okay, let's see if I can get my outliner to view over here. Panel. Lame. It knows I have an outliner open, but it's way off on the other screen. This is where I guess I can show you some Python if my script editor isn't over there as well. Is my script editor seriously over there too? Let's see. And the other fun trick you used to be able to do, let's see if it lets me do this with Maya anymore in Windows. You used to be able to select your windows separately, that way you could do the, right click from here, move, and then if you did move, it would make it so you could, yeah, try to move it around from there. Uh, but yeah, I don't know if that's actually going to work. This might just hate me for this. Okay, so plan B. Can't even get to my script editor. Ah. Okay. So this handy dandy thing down here lets you run single line commands. We're going to be doing it down there. Let's see. To import pymel.core as pm. Take a second as it's loading all of that. Cool. I think it's pm.windows. Should be able to check. Window. Okay, well that seems to be doing something. List equals true. This is not equal true. This is something I know I'll be able to, I don't need the node reference. Who needs the node reference? No. It can be important. But now we're going to look over here. Let's see. It's window, right? Oh, that was the problem I had all along. List is not what I am wanting. What do I want to list? Okay, here's a different one. For UI and PM dot, is it LSUI? I know it's in here somewhere. Yeah, LSUI, that is totally right. Window equals true. Query equals true. Oop. Print UI. Oh. Isn't it window? Oh, WND. So, taking a look at this quickly, what this is list UI, and I'm just setting Windows equal true. This should give me a UI, and for each UI it prints it. Cool. And there is a way for it to exclude the main window, or either that or it has to... Let's see. So command templates collection contacts, window, editors, panel, Windows Boolean. Okay. So that doesn't really help me in this case. But now we have UI dot, is it close? Let's try that. Has no object close. Let's look at the command here. And this is where I will also point out the PyMel command reference. Way better in some of these regards, because it will also show you, let's see, things like UI types. Wow, why is this UI really messed up right now? So now this will show me all the stuff for, oh, it's delete, not close. The commands on the window itself, which compare that to, okay, can I shrink that back to logical size? Yeah, there it goes. These are things you can do on the window itself. This is commands to get or edit windows, if I'm looking at it from that one. So let's see if I can do it this way. Delete. There should be a way to check if it's the main window or something. UI types window, children. I want to be able to say if it's the main window, continue or skip. Actually, you know what will be a safer way to do this on all of them? Instead of deleting it, let's just move it. So you can set the top left corner. So let's set the Windows top left corner. So we have to give it a value. Let's give it a value of 0, 0. So essentially we will take all of the windows that are open and recenter them. Beam, now we can kind of fix that thing. That script, if you're wanting to see it again quickly, I will totally post this on the website. But that's something that will allow you, let's make sure PyMel is imported in that. So this piece right here, what that allows you to do is if you are switching monitors, you're doing a bunch of things like that. I do this all the time. That allows you to reset all of your windows in Maya to one central location. You can set that as a button or whatever else if you're using a laptop swapping monitors. But yeah, really useful thing. Windows is now really good about fixing that most of the time. That's actually the first time I've ran into the issue recently. But yeah, that would be the script right there. Now we can take this, now that we have this. I don't know how that took quite that long. Let's see if there's... Is it not showing me? There should be a connection on this thing. And that's what I was trying to find. Image plane. We can delete that image plane. And now we're back to normal. And that's really all I wanted to do, was delete the image plane so we could rotate around this thing. Very long-winded way to do that, as I explained, all sorts of random things. But hey, totally works. So this is our new change token. And yeah, I'm going to be doing a little bit of cleanup for 3D printing. The big thing about that is just going to be going through making sure all of these shapes are watertight, all completely intersecting, only intersecting as far as I want them to. So yeah, not the most entertaining part of it. However, as always, hope you learned something and can take this and build off of it. I think that's good for right now. I'm going to merge that and just throw it into Shapeways. That's the way I'm going to test it. Maya doesn't really have a good STL exporter, in my opinion, so I'm going to be doing the same process I did when I was doing the ring designs, and I don't know if it'll actually focus and let you see. Oh, nope, green screen. It totally won't let you see the ring designs at the moment. And now I'm a ghost. But yeah, so anyway, the 3D printed rings came out. Take the same process as that for sizing, exporting the STL, and just checking, making sure it's watertight. So yeah, we have a token. Woo! See you guys later. Peace.